The message came on a Tuesday. All across Earth, every screen, radio, and communications device buzzed with the same alien voice. It spoke in perfect English, though with an odd musical tone that made some people shiver. People of Earth, we are the Ardaxians. We bring urgent warning. The Vex Dominion approaches your solar system. They consume worlds. They show no mercy. You have 42 of your days to prepare. We cannot help directly. They watch us. We wish you survival. The message played 3 times before stopping. For 6 hours, the world sat in stunned silence. Then chaos broke loose. Elizabeth Carter was tending her small garden in Montana when her old military phone rang. It had been silent for 5 years, ever since she had walked away from her role as major in the Special Tactics Division. The sound made her freeze, dirt still clinging to her fingers. "This is Carter," she said, her voice automatically shifting, back to its command tone. "Major Carter, this is General Harris. The retirement paperwork you filed is now void. I need you in Washington in 6 hours." Elizabeth looked at her peaceful home, the mountains in the distance, the life she had built. "After too many wars, with respect, sir, I'm out." "Did you hear the message, Carter?" "Everyone heard it. Then you know we're about to face something beyond anything we've trained for. I need my best people, that's you." Elizabeth closed her eyes. 6 hours, she agreed, then ended the call. The United Nations Space Coalition headquarters in Washington was a mess of activity when Elizabeth arrived. Military personnel from dozens of nations rushed through corridors. Arguments in multiple languages filled meeting rooms. Fear hung in the air like smoke. General Harris met her at the security checkpoint. He had aged since she last saw him, deep lines carving his face. "It's bad, Carter. Every space agency confirms the message was genuine. Something big is heading toward our solar system." Elizabeth nodded. "What's the plan?" "That's why you're here. We need one." They entered the main command center where giant screens showed space telescope images. One image was highlighted, a dark mass moving against the stars. "The Vex?" Elizabeth asked. "We think so. That mass is roughly the size of our moon, but it's moving with purpose." A man stood up from one of the computer stations. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a serious face marked by a scar running along his jaw. "Major Carter, Captain Samuel Wells, Tactical Division." Elizabeth had heard of Wells, brilliant strategist, problem solver, also known for breaking rules when needed. "Captain, what's your assessment?" Sam gestured to his screen. "We're outmatched in every way possible. The Vex ships, if they are ships, are moving faster than anything we've ever built. Their technology must be centuries beyond ours." "So we roll over and die?" Elizabeth challenged. Sam shook his head. "No, ma'am. We get creative." He pulled up a new screen showing Earth's military resources. "The problem isn't just the aliens, it's us. 20 different space programs, all with different systems. Competing militaries that don't share intelligence. We need to unite everything under one command structure." General Harris frowned. "The Chinese and Russians will never agree to that." "They will if they want to live," Elizabeth said. "Call an emergency session, every world leader. I'll present the case." 3 days later, the United Nations approved the Emergency Defense Act. Elizabeth was named commander of Earth's Combined Defense Forces. Sam Wells became her chief strategist. Together, they had 39 days to prepare for an enemy they knew nothing about. The lunar defense stations were humanity's first line of protection. Built years earlier as research outposts, they were quickly converted to military bases. 2,000 soldiers and scientists worked around the clock installing weapons systems and scanners. "They won't be enough," Sam told Elizabeth as they reviewed the defenses. "We need more time." "Time is something we don't have," Elizabeth replied. "What about the orbital platforms?" 8 platforms, each with missile capability and energy weapons. Again, not enough. Elizabeth studied the tactical display. "We spread out our resources, we lose. We need to concentrate our defenses where they'll do the most good." Earth's nations contributed their best weapons and soldiers. Old enemies worked side by side. Fear of extinction, overcoming centuries of distrust. For the first time in human history, there was truly a united Earth. On day 38, 4 days before the Ardaxian deadline, the Vex arrived. The first attack hit without warning. The lunar stations went dark one by one. Their communications cut off mid-sentence. The orbital scanners showed massive ships, shaped like jagged black diamonds, moving with impossible precision. "They're early," Sam said, his voice tight as they watched from command. "They knew about our preparations." Elizabeth grabbed the communications link. "All orbital platforms, this is Commander Carter. Engage Defense Protocol Alpha. Repeat, Defense Protocol Alpha." Earth's orbital weapons fired together, a coordinated strike at the lead Vex ship. Missiles and energy beams struck the black surface. Nothing happened. The weapon simply disappeared against the dark hull, absorbed without effect. "That's impossible," someone whispered in the command center. The Vex response was immediate. Beams of green light shot from the diamond ships, slicing through 3 defense platforms as if they were paper. The remaining platforms shifted positions, trying to find cover that didn't exist in open space. "Launch all fighters," Elizabeth ordered. 500 of Earth's best pilots flew into space. A mix of atmospheric craft retrofitted for space combat and true space fighters. They swarmed around the Vex ships, firing everything they had. Sam watched the tactical display, his expression growing darker by the second. "They're not even trying to dodge. Our weapons aren't hurting them." A Vex ship broke formation and headed directly toward Earth. Green beams lanced out, destroying fighter after fighter. The pilots didn't even have time to scream. "Pull them back," Elizabeth said, her voice steady despite the horror unfolding. "Get them back to atmosphere where they might have better maneuverability." It was too late for many. Of the 500 fighters launched, fewer than 200 made it back to Earth. The remaining orbital platforms fell silent, destroyed or disabled by the overwhelming force. Within 6 hours of their arrival, the Vex had established complete control of Earth's orbit. The black diamond ships formed a ring around the planet, cutting off any escape. In the command center, now moved to an underground bunker, Elizabeth and Sam stood before the world's leaders on screen. "Conventional warfare won't work," Elizabeth stated flatly. "We need new tactics." "What do you propose, Commander?" the Chinese president asked. Elizabeth looked at Sam, who nodded slightly. "We go underground. We let them think they've won, and we study them, find their weakness." "You're talking about surrendering," Russia's leader accused. "I'm talking about surviving," Elizabeth corrected. "This isn't a war we can win with missiles and fighters, but humans are adaptable. We learn, we find ways." As if to emphasize her point, the bunker shook as something massive hit the surface above. "The first Vex ground forces," Sam reported, checking a tablet. "They've landed in major cities across the globe." Elizabeth looked at the grim faces on screen. "We fight smart or we don't survive. Disperse your forces. Hide your people. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning of a new kind of war." As the screens went dark, Elizabeth turned to Sam. "Now we find out what humanity is really made of." Outside, the sky turned green as more Vex ships entered the atmosphere. Earth's darkest hour had begun. 3 months passed. The Vex controlled every major city on Earth. Their black diamond ships hovered over population centers like giant watching eyes. Tall metal structures rose up in once busy downtown areas, glowing with green energy as they dug deep into the planet, extracting resources. Humans who did not escape were forced to work in processing centers, sorting minerals and metals that the Vex ships carried away. Grace Hoffman picked through the ruins of Chicago, staying low and moving fast. Once she had been a lieutenant in the Army Corps of Engineers. Now she was just another survivor. Her backpack held tools and scavenged electronics. Her dirty face and torn clothes helped her blend into the broken city. A Vex patrol moved along the street ahead. 4 tall aliens in metal armor walked in perfect step. Their heads were narrow with 3 glowing eyes set in a triangle pattern. They carried weapons that looked like twisted metal branches. Grace slipped into a collapsed building and held her breath as they passed. When they were gone, she pulled out a small device she had built from parts. It detected energy patterns, and something in this area was giving off unusual readings. She followed the signal to what had once been a research lab. Inside, half buried under fallen concrete, was a damaged Vex communication pod. Grace carefully dug it out and examined it without touching the surface. This was what she had been searching for. "Got you," she whispered. 50 miles outside the city, an old mining tunnel had been converted into a resistance base. Kyle Martinez, once a sergeant in the Marines, now led one of many resistance cells across the country. He paced the main tunnel, checking supplies and speaking with lookouts. "Any sign of pursuit?" he asked a young woman at the entrance. "None, Sergeant. The supply team made it back clean." Kyle nodded. He had a strong face with a short beard and eyes that inspired confidence. People followed him because he never showed fear even when he felt it. "Good. Tell Alan to distribute the medicine first, then the food." A radio crackled on his belt. Only the Resistance used old radios now. The Vex controlled all digital communications. Hammer to base. "I found something. Coming in with package. Clear path needed." Kyle recognized Grace's voice. "Base to Hammer. Path will be clear. Use entrance 3. 3 hours later, Grace arrived with the Vex device wrapped in special shielding material. Kyle gathered the base's leadership to examine it. "It's some kind of communication node," Grace explained. "It was damaged in a building collapse. I think I can get it working enough to listen to their transmissions." "Can they trace it to us?" asked Alan, the former hospital administrator who now ran their medical station. "Not if I'm careful," Grace said. "And if it gets risky, we destroy it." Kyle looked at the alien technology. "Do it. We need any advantage we can get." While Grace worked on the device, Kyle received another radio call. This one came from a hidden frequency known only to resistance leaders. "All cells, this is Mountain Base. Priority message follows." Kyle recognized Elizabeth Carter's voice. After the initial invasion, she had established a command center in the Rocky Mountains, coordinating what remained of Earth's fighting forces. Confirmed intel: Vex processing humans for biological study. All cells, increase rescue operations. Mountain Base out. Kyle's hands tightened on the radio. The rumors were true then. The workers who disappeared from processing centers weren't being moved to other locations. They were being taken for experiments. In the Mountain Base, Elizabeth Carter studied maps showing known Vex positions across North America. Sam Wells had just returned from a dangerous mission, infiltrating a Vex facility disguised as a worker. He looked exhausted, his face thinner than when he left. "It's worse than we thought," Sam reported. "They're not just studying humans. They're comparing our biology to other species. We're not their first victims." Elizabeth's face remained calm, but her eyes hardened. "Tell me everything." "They have chambers filled with preserved specimens. Some look almost human. Others are completely alien. I saw records showing at least 6 other planets they've harvested." "Did you get what we needed?" Sam pulled a small crystal from his pocket. "Yes. Access codes to their facility network. It should help us track their movements, maybe even tap into their communications." Elizabeth took the crystal carefully. "Good work. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start planning the next phase." Back in the Chicago Resistance Base, Grace worked through the night on the Vex communication device. By morning, she had it partially working. Strange sounds filled the small workshop, clicks and hums that seemed to follow patterns. "It's a language," she told Kyle when he checked on her. "Complex but consistent. I think I can create a translation program if I collect enough samples." "How long?" Grace rubbed her tired eyes. "A week, maybe 2. "You have 3 days," Kyle said. "We're moving locations after that. Too dangerous to stay in one place longer." Grace nodded. She understood the risks. Everyone did now. For the next 3 days, she barely slept, recording and analyzing the alien communications. Patterns emerged. Words began to form meaning. On the 3rd day, she called Kyle to her workshop. "Listen to this," she said, playing a translated recording. A flat computer voice spoke. "Extraction proceeding as scheduled. Earth resources at 60% depletion in target zones. Complete harvest estimated in 370 Earth days. Biological specimens responding well to adaptation tests. Kyle's face darkened. They're planning to strip the entire planet in just a year. There's more, Grace said. She played another recording. Ardaxian prisoners transfer from Jupiter holding facility to Earth main processing center scheduled next cycle. High priority. The Ardaxians, Kyle said. The aliens who warned us about the Vex. They're prisoners too. And they're being brought here, Grace added. That could be important. Kyle immediately went to the communications station and contacted Mountain Base. This information needed to reach Elizabeth Carter right away. At Mountain Base, Elizabeth called an emergency meeting after receiving Kyle's message. Sam Wells and other resistance leaders gathered around a table carved from mountain stone. If the Ardaxians are being transferred to Earth, we need to make contact, Elizabeth said. They know more about the Vex than we do. A rescue operation? One of the leaders asked. That would be extremely risky. Sam studied the map. Risky, but possibly worth it. The Ardaxians must have fought the Vex before. They might know weaknesses we haven't discovered. We need more intelligence first, Elizabeth decided. Captain Wells, I want you to coordinate with all resistance cells. Find out everything you can about this transfer. When and where exactly. Security levels. Everything. Yes, Commander, Sam replied. Elizabeth looked at each person around the table. This could be our first real opportunity. The Vex have been one step ahead of us from the beginning. We need allies who understand what we're fighting. As the meeting broke up, Elizabeth went to a small side chamber where monitors showed feeds from hidden cameras across the country. The images were grim. Humans in work camps, Vex extraction machines tearing up the land, once great cities reduced to alien outposts. Sam joined her, standing quietly at her side. We'll beat them, he said simply. Elizabeth nodded. Humanity isn't finished yet. We're still learning how to fight this war. And now with the Ardaxians we might finally get some answers. Outside, night fell over the mountain. Hidden resistance bases across the planet continued their work, gathering intelligence, rescuing prisoners and preparing for the day when humans would take back their world. The war had only just begun. The plan was called Operation Thunderstrike. After months of gathering intelligence, the time had come to act. Elizabeth Carter sent the coded message to all resistance cells. Begin coordinated strikes. Gather all technology possible. Around the world, human fighters moved from their hiding places. In what had once been Berlin, 50 resistance members attacked a Vex supply depot. In the ruins of Tokyo, a team disabled a Vex communication tower. Similar operations took place in 30 locations across the planet. Kyle Martinez led his team toward a Vex outpost near the old Chicago city limits. The building had once been a research facility, now converted to a Vex technology center. Grace Hoffman moved beside him, carrying equipment to hack into Vex systems. Remember, Kyle told his team, we hit fast and grab what we can. Focus on smaller devices we can carry. Be out in 10 minutes. The night was cold as they approached the facility. 2 Vex guards stood at the entrance, their three-eyed faces scanning the area. Kyle signaled to his snipers. 2 shots, barely. Making a sound with their special silencers took down the guards. Move in, Kyle ordered. The team rushed the entrance. Inside, they found halls filled with strange devices and glowing screens. Grace immediately went to work, connecting her equipment to a Vex terminal. I need 3 minutes, she said, fingers flying over her device. Kyle positioned his fighters to defend the entrance. 3 minutes, not a second more. As Grace downloaded Vex data, the rest of the team gathered weapons and devices small enough to carry. One man found a rack of crystalline objects that seemed to be power sources. Another discovered handheld, scanning tools. Time's up, Kyle said exactly 3 minutes later. Grace disconnected her equipment. Got it. Everything they have on this server. They were halfway back to their hidden transport when the alarm sounded. A high-pitched wail filled the air. From around the corner of the facility, a squad of Vex soldiers appeared. "Run!" Kyle shouted. The team sprinted for their vehicles as green energy blasts struck the ground around them. 2 resistance fighters fell, their bodies smoking where the energy hit. The rest made it to their vehicles and sped away into the night. Back at their hidden base, Kyle took stock. 2 dead, 3 wounded, but they had escaped with valuable Vex technology and data. Similar reports came in from around the world. Some teams had failed, but most had succeeded. For the first time, humanity had struck back in a coordinated attack at HFY mountain base. Elizabeth Carter received the reports with grim satisfaction. Sam Wells marked each successful raid on their map. 23 successful operations, he said. 7 failed. Overall better than we expected. "And the Jupiter mission?" Elizabeth asked. Sam pointed to a separate screen showing a small shuttle approaching Jupiter. "On schedule. They should reach the Vex station in 3 days." Elizabeth nodded. The Jupiter mission was their most dangerous operation. A small team was heading to the Vex space station orbiting the giant planet, aiming to rescue the Ardaxian prisoners. The team included some of their best fighters and one brilliant scientist who had once worked for NASA. Dr. Olivia Bennett had lost her husband and 2 children during the initial Vex attack on Houston. She had been away at a conference when her city was destroyed. Now she worked tirelessly, turning her grief into determination. Her specialty was adapting alien technology for human use. In her lab at Mountain Base, Olivia examined the Vex devices that had been gathered from the raids. She had already made significant progress understanding their technology. "Commander," she called as Elizabeth entered the lab. "I have something to show you." Olivia picked up what looked like a modified human body armor, with Vex components attached. "I call it adaptive shielding. It absorbs Vex energy weapons and redirects the power." Elizabeth touched the material. "You're saying this can protect against their weapons?" "Not completely, but it reduces the damage by 80%. Enough to give our fighters a fighting chance." Elizabeth's eyes lit up for the first time in months. "How many can you make?" "With the materials we have? Maybe 50 sets. But if we capture more Vex technology, we can make hundreds." "Prioritize the Jupiter team," Elizabeth ordered. "They'll need every advantage." 3 days later, the Jupiter team reached the Vex station. The small ship, disguised with Vex hull plating scavenged from destroyed vessels, approached without raising alarms. The 5-person team wore the new adaptive shields under their spacesuits. They docked at an unused port and cut their way inside. The station was massive, with curved hallways and strange gravity that made the humans feel lighter than they should. Using stolen access codes, they moved toward the detention area. The team leader, Frank Reeves, had been a Navy SEAL before the invasion. He moved silently despite the bulky spacesuit, signaling his team to follow. They encountered 2 Vex guards, and quickly eliminated them with modified weapons. In the detention block, they found 12 cells. Inside were creatures unlike anything they had seen before. Tall, slender beings with pale blue skin and large eyes. The Ardaxians. "We're from Earth," Frank said to the nearest prisoner. "We came to help." The Ardaxian stared in shock. "Earth still fights? We thought you would be conquered by now." "Not even close," Frank replied as his team worked to open the cells. "We need your help to beat these Vex monsters." The Ardaxians moved quickly once freed. One of them, wearing what seemed to be a uniform, approached Frank. "I am Ambassador Chiral. My people warned yours of the Vex arrival." "We got your message," Frank said. "A bit late, but we got it." "The Vex detected our transmission and captured our ship," Chiral explained. "We have been prisoners for many months." An alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. "Time to go," Frank ordered. The humans and Ardaxians hurried back to the ship. 2 Vex patrol teams intercepted them in the corridors. Energy weapons fired, striking the humans. The adaptive shields glowed as they absorbed the energy, allowing the team to return fire and continue. They reached the ship with Vex forces close behind. As the last Ardaxian boarded, a blast caught Frank in the back. His shield overloaded, and he fell. Another team member dragged him aboard as the ship detached from the station. The small vessel raced away from Jupiter with 3 Vex ships in pursuit. Their pilot, a former Air Force major named Diane Nichols, pushed the engines beyond safe limits. The ship shuddered as energy blasts struck its hull. "We're not going to outrun them," she called back. Ambassador Kirill moved to the cockpit. "Allow me." His long fingers moved over the controls, making adjustments. "Head for the asteroid field between Jupiter and Mars." Diane followed his instructions. As they entered the asteroid field, Kirill inputted a sequence that caused their engines to emit a strange frequency. The Vex ship suddenly veered away as if confused. "They cannot track us now," Kirill explained. "This frequency disrupts their navigation systems." The ship limped back toward Earth with its precious cargo of Ardaxian allies. Frank Reeves survived his injury, though barely. The mission was a success. At Mountain Base, Elizabeth and Sam greeted the Ardaxians with hope and anticipation. The first time since the invasion began, humans had powerful allies who understood the enemy. "Your species is remarkable," Ambassador Kirill told Elizabeth. "The Vex have conquered 27 worlds before yours. None have resisted this effectively." Elizabeth allowed herself a small smile. The fight has just begun. 6 months after the Vex invasion, Earth was a different place. The resistance had grown from scattered groups into an organized force. The knowledge shared by the Ardaxians had changed everything. Elizabeth Carter stood in the new command center, hidden deep under the Rocky Mountains. The room buzzed with activity as officers coordinated resistance cells worldwide. Large screens showed maps of Vex positions and human strongholds. "The Geneva operation is ready," Sam Wells reported, pointing to a detailed map of what once was Switzerland. "Kyle's team will lead the ground assault while our air teams provide cover." Elizabeth studied the plan. Recapturing the United Nations Space Coalition headquarters in Geneva was their most ambitious operation yet. The building now served as a regional Vex command center. "What about their defensive capabilities?" she asked. "Olivia's team has that covered," Sam replied. In the technology lab 3 levels below, Dr. Olivia Bennett worked alongside Grace Hoffman and 3 Ardaxian scientists. On their main table sat what looked like a small silver sphere. "The virus is ready," Grace said, checking final calculations on her tablet. "Once uploaded to their system, it will disable Vex navigation protocols for approximately 20 minutes. Olivia nodded. 20 minutes should be enough if all teams move exactly as planned. One of the Ardaxians, a scientist named Trill, added, "We have tested it on the components you captured. It works perfectly." The door opened, and Ambassador Kirill entered with Elizabeth and Sam. The tall, blue-skinned alien had become a trusted advisor in the fight against the Vex. "Show me," Elizabeth said. Grace activated a simulation on the large screen. It showed how the virus would spread through Vex networks, temporarily blinding their tracking and navigation systems. "All strike teams will have exactly 20 minutes from the moment we activate it," Grace explained. "After that, the Vex will adapt and create a countermeasure." "One chance," Elizabeth said. "Make it count." The operation began the next day. Kyle Martinez led 200 fighters toward Geneva, while similar forces approached 20 other Vex strongholds around the world. All wore the improved adaptive shields created by Olivia's team. Kyle checked his weapon, a modified rifle that combined human and Ardaxian technology. "Remember the plan," he told his team. "We move only when the signal comes that the virus is active." They waited in the forest outside Geneva, watching the Vex patrols move with mechanical precision around the former UN building. Kyle's second-in-command, a former police officer named Heather Daniels, kept her eyes on her watch. "Should be any minute now," she whispered. Across the Atlantic Ocean in what was once New York City, another resistance force prepared to reclaim the city. Block by block, building by building, they had secretly moved into position. The city, that had once held millions, now housed thousands of Vex and their human workers. The operations leader was a local man who had refused to leave his home when the invasion came. Now he coordinated 3,000 fighters hidden throughout Manhattan. "All units stand by," he said into his radio. Wait for the signal. On the Vex command ship orbiting Earth, Sam Wells moved carefully through the corridors. He wore a special suit designed by the Ardaxians that mimicked Vex biosignatures. To the ship's sensors, he appeared to be a Vex soldier. His mission was the most dangerous of all: infiltrate the command ship and access their central communication hub. From there, he would send the signal to trigger Grace's virus across all Vex systems. Sam reached the communication center without detection. Using access codes provided by the Ardaxians, he entered the room. Strange equipment lined the walls, pulsing with green light. He pulled out a small device and connected it to what appeared to be the main terminal. "For Earth," he whispered as he activated the device. Around the world, Vex systems suddenly faltered. Their soldiers stopped mid-step. Their ships drifted slightly off course. Their communication networks filled with static. In Geneva, Kyle saw the Vex guards suddenly freeze in confusion. "Now!" he shouted. His fighters rushed from their hiding places, targeting the disoriented Vex. Their new weapons pierced the alien armor with ease. The first line of defense fell within minutes. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In New York, resistance fighters emerged from sewers and abandoned buildings. In Tokyo, hidden cells attacked processing centers. In Moscow, a team seized a Vex transportation hub. For the first time, humanity had the advantage. The virus worked even better than expected, leaving Vex forces uncoordinated and vulnerable. Kyle's team pushed into the UN building, securing floor after floor. The Vex tried to fight back, but without their navigation systems and communications, they could not coordinate their defense. "We have the building," Kyle reported over the secure radio channel. "The command center is ours." Elizabeth's voice came through clearly. "Excellent work. Hold position." As reports came in from around the world, Elizabeth allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The coordinated assault, codenamed Operation Daybreak, was succeeding beyond expectations. 16 major cities reporting success, an officer announced. "Vex forces retreating or captured." Sam's voice came through with static. "Command ship data accessed. You need to see this, Commander." "Get back safely," Elizabeth ordered. "We'll review when you return." Sam made it back to Earth just as the virus effect was wearing off. He brought with him a treasure, downloaded files from the Vex command ship's database. In the mountain base, Elizabeth, Sam, Olivia, and Ambassador Kyril reviewed the data. What they found was disturbing. "They're calling for reinforcements," Sam explained, pointing to translated Vex communications. "They've identified humanity as a serious threat and are redirecting forces from other conquered systems." Kyril nodded gravely. "This was inevitable. You have hurt them. Now they will respond with greater force." "How much time do we have?" Elizabeth asked. Sam checked the data. "Based on these transit calculations, 3 weeks at most." Elizabeth turned to the ambassador. "We need more of your technology, better weapons." "My people will provide what we can," Kyril promised. "But understand, the Vex conquered our world despite our advanced technology. They adapt quickly to any weapon used against them." "Then we'll keep changing our tactics," Elizabeth said firmly. "We won't give them time to adapt." As they spoke, another officer rushed into the room. "Commander, urgent message from our deep space monitoring station." Elizabeth took the report and read it quickly. Her face paled. "What is it?" Sam asked. "The Vex are bringing something called a planetary cleansing device. According to this translation, if they can't control Earth, they'll make it uninhabitable for any life form." The room fell silent. Kyril stepped forward. "My world faced the same threat. We surrendered rather than see our planet destroyed." He looked directly at Elizabeth. "Will you do the same?" Elizabeth straightened her shoulders. "No, we will not surrender. If they want to destroy our world, they'll have to fight us for every inch of it." She turned to her officers. "New plan, we're taking the fight to them." 3 days. That was all the time they had before the Vex planet killer weapon would arrive in Earth orbit. Elizabeth Carter gathered the top resistance leaders and Ardaxian allies in the mountain base command center. "We have one chance," she said, pointing to the tactical display. "We take the fight to space." Sam Wells stood beside her. "The Vex expect us to defend from the ground. They won't expect an attack on their fleet. The plan was bold, perhaps even crazy. Using captured Vex ships and modified human spacecraft, they would launch a direct assault on the incoming Vex armada. The target was the massive mothership carrying the planet-killer weapon. "How many ships do we have?" asked Kyle Martinez, who had returned from Geneva the day before. 17 captured Vex vessels that our pilots can now operate, thanks to the Ardaxians, Sam replied. Plus 35 modified human craft with Ardaxian shield technology. Not enough, one of the resistance leaders said. It has to be enough, Elizabeth stated firmly. We need volunteers. Every hand in the room went up. No one hesitated. In the technology lab, Grace Hoffman and Olivia Bennett worked frantically alongside the Ardaxian scientists. They had combined human and alien technology to create something new, a prototype warp drive that could give their ships the speed advantage they desperately needed. It's not fully tested, Grace warned, as Elizabeth inspected their work. Will it get our ships to the target? Elizabeth asked. Olivia nodded. Yes, but we only have enough material for 3 drives. Put them on our 3 largest ships, Elizabeth ordered. They'll lead the attack. Ambassador Kyril entered the lab. My people have provided all the weapons and shields we can spare. It may not be enough. It will be, Elizabeth said with quiet confidence. Because we have something the Vex don't understand. What is that? Kyril asked. The willingness to sacrifice everything for others. The Vex think only of conquest. We think of protection. The Ardaxian considered this. Perhaps that is why your species has resisted more effectively than any other the Vex have encountered. Preparations moved at lightning speed. Pilots trained in simulators to handle the modified ships. Weapons were distributed. Final plans were made. Every person knew this might be humanity's last stand. The day before the mission, Sam found Elizabeth, alone in the command center, studying the enemy fleet positions. You should get some rest, he said. She shook her head. Too much to do. Elizabeth, he said, using her first name instead of her title. If this works, we save Earth. If it doesn't, at least we went down fighting, she finished. I can live with that or die with it. Sam nodded. He understood. In the months they had worked together, few words had been needed between them. I'll lead the diversionary attack on the ground forces, he said. You focus on the mothership. Be careful, she replied simply. You too. Launch day arrived. The Vex planet killer had entered the solar system, just beyond Mars' orbit. The resistance forces moved into position. Elizabeth, Kyle, and a team of elite fighters prepared to board the lead ship. Sam led his ground forces toward the largest Vex base in North America. Their job was to create a distraction, forcing the Vex to split their attention between ground and space. All ships, prepare. For launch, Elizabeth's voice came through the communication system. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. The fleet of recaptured and modified ships lifted off from hidden bases around the world. They used the adapted Vex technology to mask their approach, gathering in low Earth orbit before the final push. Sam's attack began exactly on schedule. 5,000 fighters struck the main Vex base with everything they had. The aliens responded, sending troops and small ships to defend. It's working, Sam reported. They're focusing forces here. In orbit, Elizabeth gave the command. All ships, execute warp jump now. The 3 lead ships, equipped with the experimental warp drives, vanished in flashes of light. The rest of the fleet followed using conventional drives. They reappeared near the incoming Vex armada, much closer than the aliens expected. All ships, engage targets, Elizabeth ordered. The battle in space was unlike anything humans had ever fought before. The smaller Earth vessels darted between massive Vex ships, firing weapons adapted from Ardaxian technology. The Vex responded with green energy beams that cut through space. Elizabeth's ship headed directly for the Vex mothership, a massive black diamond 10 times larger than the others. Kyle managed their weapons while Elizabeth directed the approach. Their shields are too strong for a direct hit. Kyle reported as their attacks seemed to bounce off the mothership. "We need to get inside," Elizabeth decided. "Find us a way in." An Ardaxian crew member identified a docking port. Their ship, disguised with Vex hull plating, approached without raising immediate alarms. They landed in a secondary docking bay. "Strike team, move out," Elizabeth ordered. She led 20 fighters into the Vex mothership. All wore the latest adaptive shields and carried weapons designed to work inside Vex ships without damaging critical systems. They fought their way toward the center of the ship where scanners showed the planet killer weapon was housed. Vex soldiers responded in growing numbers. "They know we're here now," Kyle said as they took cover behind alien machinery. "Keep moving," Elizabeth ordered. Outside, the space battle raged. Human ships fought bravely but were outnumbered. One by one, they fell to Vex weapons. Yet they continued fighting, drawing attention away from Elizabeth's team. Finally, they reached the central chamber. The planet killer was an enormous device pulsing with green energy. Vex scientists worked at control panels around it. "Plant the charges," Elizabeth ordered. The team moved quickly, placing explosive devices at key points. Before they could finish, a door opened. A Vex figure entered, larger than the others, with a crown-like structure on its head. The Vex Overlord. "Humans." It spoke in a strange mechanical voice. "You surprise us. No species has fought so hard before." "We're just getting started," Elizabeth replied, raising her weapon. "Why resist? Your defeat is inevitable. We have conquered 27 worlds before yours." "Because this is our home," Elizabeth said, "and humans don't surrender their homes." The Overlord studied her. "Curious. You would die for others?" "Every time," Elizabeth answered. As they spoke, Kyle secretly finished placing the final charge. He nodded to Elizabeth. "Your species is different," the Overlord noted. "But still doomed," Elizabeth smiled. "I don't think so." She pressed the detonator, but instead of destroying the weapon, Kyle had reconfigured the charges. The explosions damaged the control systems, causing the planet killer to turn toward the Vex fleet. "Run!" Elizabeth ordered her team. They fought, their way back to their ship as the mothership systems began to fail. The Vex Overlord's screams of rage followed them through the corridors. The strike team reached their ship and detached from the mothership just as the planet killer activated, firing its deadly beam into the heart of the Vex fleet. Ship after ship exploded as the beam cut through them. "All human vessels retreat immediately," Elizabeth broadcast. The surviving Earth ships pulled back as the Vex fleet was torn apart by their own weapon. The mothership itself began to break apart from the energy backlash. From the ground, Sam watched the flashes of light in the sky. "They did it," he whispered. The remaining Vex forces, seeing their fleet destroyed and their leaders killed, began to retreat. Ships that survived lifted off from Earth, abandoning their bases. 3 days later, Elizabeth stood with Sam, Kyle, Grace, Olivia, and Ambassador Kyril on a hilltop overlooking a recovering Earth. "They're gone," Grace confirmed, checking readings on her device. "The last Vex ships left the solar system." "Will they return?" Sam asked Kyril. The Ardaxian shook his head. "Not likely. The Vex avoid planets that cost them too much. You have proven too costly to conquer." Elizabeth looked at the sky, now free of alien ships for the first time in months. "Then we rebuild." As they turned to leave, a message came through on an Ardaxian frequency. Kyril listened, then looked at the humans with surprise. "It's from the Eridani system, another world under Vex attack. They heard about Earth's resistance. They're asking for help." Elizabeth exchanged glances with her companions. "Tell them help is coming." Humanity had not only saved their world but found a new purpose among the stars.